Hey, so I'm going to be doing some VOD analysis of this Lina game for a friend of mine. I'm pretty new to doing Dota analysis, but I want to try this out. I think I'll have some good insight. The player I'm going to be watching is pretty new to the game, so this will probably be mostly informative for newer players. I'm going to switch over to player perspective and probably just stay on this.
The stage is set. Everyone prepared?
So I do like your starting build a decent bit. You bought a lot of regen, which is better than what most people will buy early on. Most people will just go for early items. I still think it's worth mentioning. My favorite starting build on any 5 at the moment is building most of wand, everything but the recipe, so you get magic stick and the 2 branches that you got. I get 2 sets of tangos because you're often going to have to be the one to give tangos to your mid laner. So it's useful to have 2 sets so that you still have 4 left over for yourself. I get a mango, clarity, yeah, and that should be all your gold if you get the wand parts, 2 tangos, mango, and clarity. And then you can take a ward. It doesn't matter a ton, but personally I would have the wards on the position 4 in the off lane, and then the mid laner. The mid laner getting one is very important. Whether the second ward goes to position 5 or position 4, it doesn't really matter early game. So it looks like you're just getting walled out of rune here. They sent 3, that's fine. Hopefully your team gets the 2 on the other side. It's been a while since I've played Lina, so I don't know how much insight I'll have on specific stuff for the character, but I do play a lot of position 5 in general.
We have first blood.
Well, if it ain't first bloody blood.
So I don't really know what you're doing here. You don't have much vision of them in this area, and even if you do come up behind them, you're not going to be able to fight them 1-on-2 at this point. And also, you're laning with Spectre this game, who is very much a farming carry in the early game and can't really do much damage in fights. And so you just end up having to walk back up here, which does let your carry get a little bit of solo XP to get to level 2 faster, but really in the early game, the support getting levels is kind of more important than the carry in the safe lane, because your spells will scale really strongly at like levels 2, 3, 4, and will help you do a lot better in the lane overall. So just having to walk back there costs you a bit of time. I'm also not sure exactly if I'm going to watch all of this game. I might skip around some. I definitely do want to watch all of the laning phase because that's pretty important and has a lot of stuff I can point out, but I did see it's a pretty long game just from looking at the stats. So this is good. Definitely just getting a lot of right clicks in on them, just getting harassed. It'll make them use regen more. Sometimes you'll be against a tankier offlaner, one with regen. Like a very notable examples are like Axe and Centaur, and they are a bit harder to harass. But in this lane, you can definitely get some damage in over time with those right clicks. Also, after you've placed this word, you should definitely have your branches in your active item slots. Those will give you more stats. This is a good pull here, by the way. Spectre definitely would rather farm under tower than having the lane pushed up. She's one of those that needs to be very safe early on. Anyway, you should have these branches active, and I would probably even put your salve in your backpack because you're not going to need to use your salve on very short-term notice. You can handle the 6-second cooldown for that, but having the stats from those branches will make your right clicks just a little bit stronger, and it's just worth having those active since you have them already. Also at this point you have nearly 500 gold. Probably before this point actually I would have put the parts to finish a wand and then maybe one of each type of ward on the courier and sent it out. you definitely want to get some wards early on to put in like this area around your jungle so that, one, it's harder for the enemy to go in there and farm because you'll have vision to be able to stop them if they do that. You'll be able to see if they're pulling their wave, and you can also just de-ward if you think they have a ward in there, or if they have a hero who can go invis. It's very important to put a sentry in lane. So I usually just get one of each type of ward very early on in the first courier trip. And then, yeah, you should definitely complete a wand by now. And the reason I like starting with a magic stick over the fairy fire and salve that you went with is you'll be building up those charges very early on during the laning stage. Like every spell they've cast up to this point you should have charges for, and I usually don't spend those charges on the magic stick because the charges carry over when you build it into a wand. I see you finally put a branch in your active items, that's good. Anyway, the charges carry over when you turn it into the magic wand, and they do more healing and mana gain in the wand form than in the magic stick form. So I usually just build up max charges early, and then unless I really need it to save my life, I just wait until I've built the full wand and then use it for more regen. This is another good lane pull. Pulling is very good in this lane. It's going to get you XP. Spectre is getting gone on there under tower, but I think she's fine. Yeah. But yeah, just gets both of you more XP. Spectre would very much like to just be farming near her own tower all of the time. You're getting up to like 750 gold here. This is way too much. You should have sent out at least one courier by now and maybe have the second one on the way. You also didn't try to contest runes here at 5 minutes, and you haven't stacked this big camp at all. So stacking the big camp and whether or not you want to do that can be pretty complicated. It depends on like if you think you're going to be winning this lane enough that the enemies won't be able to take your stacks, and it also just depends on the heroes in the lane. Like, can your carry take stacks early on, or is that too hard for them? And can the enemies take stacks early on? In this case, Sven is very good at taking stacks, so he could definitely steal them, so it just depends on how the lane is going if you want to do that. I don't know if you were considering it at all, but I just noticed that you haven't been stacking the camps. So that's something to keep in mind, and also, since you stack the camps at the minute mark, if you're doing that, you can be stacking the big camp when the 5-minute rune spawns and just like pull them out towards the rune and take the rune, and if you're just already there, you might as well. So at this point, I feel like you are not really doing much damage to them in lane. There are ways that you could be doing more damage at this point, like if you had sent out some items before now, or just going on like the Zeus more, trying to get more right clicks in, because Zeus is much squishier at this point. But if you're not really doing much, you're just kind of soaking XP from Spectre in lane, and you could be going off and pulling again, or stacking camps, or warding, or something else at this point. Like the past 30 seconds to a minute, you have not really accomplished anything by being in lane here, other than just getting some XP. Also, I really do not like that as your first courier. You should not be getting boots before other items. Like, you maybe could have gotten boots by this point, but you definitely should have finished your wand first and brought out some wards, maybe some extra regen if you needed it for the lane, which you didn't in this case, but you should definitely be buying other things before boots, and you definitely don't want to send boots out on just a lone courier. It's good in the early game to have your courier be traveling like almost all the time. Like, it's pretty slow, but if you group it up so that there's several items on it and you're just constantly shipping out like wards and regen and parts for wands and stuff like that, you can have it running near constantly as after you start your first courier trip 2 to 3 minutes in. So Queen of Pain came up here to gank. I actually did not see... Did your mid call missing? Yes, your mid called missing on this. Why will it not let me close this chat? That is very annoying. I actually do not know why. Okay, that works. Yeah, that was weird. So your mid called missing on this. You definitely should have had a rune down, not a rune, a ward down by this point. Even if you didn't have one earlier in the game, having a ward here at the top of these stairs, or somewhere like here on these stairs, would show you if the mid was rotating up here. Even if your mid did not call missing, you would be able to see the gank before she's like this close, where you just got vision of her up here. And at this point, it's kind of too late. Like, it's going to be hard for somebody to make a rotation before they all just jump on you or the Spectre. I don't know. Let me see how this actually turns out. Switch back to player perspective as well. So you get a stun on both of them. Let me go back a few seconds because I paused. Okay, so they just got body blocked by creeps, grouped up for a stun, didn't really use any abilities on you, and you get away. I definitely would have walked to Fountain instead of doing... Okay, several things right here. I would have walked to Fountain instead of using that salve and just TP'd back to lane. You're very low, and if you do buy a starting salve like that, you're usually going to want to use it on your carry rather than yourself. It's more for them. I don't recommend buying a salve starting item, but like if you had gotten one early game or you just somehow still had one at this point, you're usually not looking to use it on yourself, and it doesn't hurt as much if you do walk back. You don't want to do that often, but you are already back at your tier 1 from being chased. It would have been a pretty short time. And the second thing is, you still had a debuff on you when you used the salve from Queen of Pain, and that was causing bleed damage every tick. And because of that, that interrupted the salve immediately. I'm not sure if you already noticed in the game why that stopped or not, but whenever you use a salve, you want to be sure that 1, there aren't any enemies nearby who can immediately cancel it, and 2, you want to look at your buff and debuff bar and make sure there's nothing doing damage to you over time, because that will just cancel the salve. Same thing with Clarities, by the way. Clarities also get interrupted by hero damage. So your mid rotated and ended up getting a kill on the Zeus. That's pretty good. It's good rotation timing by them. The Queen of Pain is still just wandering around in her jungle. I don't know what she's doing. So yeah, now you're really low in lane. You've got no regen other than your Fairy Fire. This is not a great position to be in, and this was why I would have gone back to base there, because you didn't really do anything in the fight. Okay, your Spectre is getting gone on. You were a bit distracted looking at the shop, but that's fine. I don't think you really could have done much about that gank anyway. Your Spectre was playing very far out there, despite knowing that the Queen of Pain was still in the area, because you had vision on her. Okay, and here you die because she just stuck around longer. You probably would have been a bit safer under tower, but this is still just the consequences from a minute ago of like wasting that salve and not going back to base and just sticking around in lane at low HP with no regen. That's just like a bad spot to be in, and it's unlucky for you that she stuck around that long. I probably wouldn't have stayed there if I was the Queen of Pain, but she did, and that ended up happening. You teleported to the wrong tower here, probably just a misclick, that's fine. So before that teleport, you had, okay, it's Donnie's again, but first I just wanted to point out, before that teleport, you have 500 gold. You could have finished your Tranquil boots, you could have bought some more regen. Tranquils would give you regen, but if you wanted to be more flexible, you could have bought another salve to use on the Spectre if she got low. Could have bought another set of tangos maybe, though it's getting a bit late in the game for tangos. Could have bought a clarity so that you can spam your spells more. You definitely should have spent this before leaving base on something. Also, still no wards in this part of the map. Could have gotten some, then at least an observer. Yes, there's an observer in stock, and just placing that for free is very, very worth it. Also, the Tome of Knowledge just spawned because it's 10 minutes. You teleported a bit before that, but that's something that's sometimes worth waiting a few seconds in the fountain for. You can't always afford it as a position 5 because you're spending a lot of gold on a lot of different things early on, ideally, between regen, trying to get your boots, just buying wards, all that sort of stuff. But if you can afford it and it's at 10 minutes, then that's nice. Usually you'll use the first one on either yourself or the position 4, whoever is lower level at the time. But later on in the game, you can use it either on an underleveled person, or if one of your cores is about to hit a 5-level increment power spike where they get one of their talents, then you can buy the book for them and drop it in the fountain, and then they can use it. But yeah, just leaving base with all of this extra gold there, and with bounties about to spawn, so you would have even more gold, is not great. So you notice the bounty spawn timing. You go down here, but Spectre's already got it.
Dire's middle tower is being attacked.
Would have been better if Spectre just stayed in lane and farmed, since you were there anyway and could have gotten it, but that's not on you. So there, that Sven was farming that camp, so if you had stacked that, he probably would have been able to steal it at that point. And I don't think your Spectre can farm it yet, so in hindsight, it's a good call to not stack it. Okay, you've got some wards now. That is a risky spot to put the obs, but a good one if you can get away with it. It's just often they will have vision there and they'll see you placing it and they can deward it. Not that they usually have preemptive sentries there. So you pull the wave again here. It's definitely good to pull here, but you have to be very careful. Okay, so something I want to talk about there. You used a spell on the camp when you pulled the wave, and you got the entire wave. You didn't just get some of the creeps; you got all of them. And also, that camp with the ghosts is especially weak for a small camp versus the early creep waves. You do not want to do damage to the camp, because the creeps will kill it on their own, and there will still be leftover creeps that are going to go back to lane after that. So you have to be really careful when you're pulling like this, because these creeps will go back, and sometimes, depending on where the lane equilibrium is at, they will counter push after you've done the pull if you kill the camp too early. You can go for last hits on the camp if you want to try to get the gold bonus, but really it's not much, and just getting the XP is fine. But you do not want to do damage to them with spells, for sure. You don't want to be right-clicking them, and in fact, you want to be right-clicking your own creeps if it's one of these weaker camps. As soon as they get to the half HP mark, where you can start denying them, you want to be auto-attacking your own creeps to help out the neutral camp so that the wave will die, or at least get close to it. Also, you still have a lot of gold. Still, you got this bounty here. It would still be a good time to shop. You should probably finish up your tranquils around now. It's hard to tell at this point if your Spectre is very vulnerable to dying, so I think it's a good choice to stay in the lane at this point rather than roaming. You do know that the Zeus ult is down now, so you could probably be a bit more aggressive, though you don't have 6 yet, and he does, but as soon as you hit 6, you might want to go for a kill on him. I have not watched this game yet, so I'm not sure if you do end up doing that. So they're just diving for you. Let me go back and see if there's like something I would have done different here. So you stun them, you're under tower. Zeus hits you. Okay. So there, you were walking around like in this spot, deciding if you should stay in lane or not. They did have the kill power, and but your mid was on the way, so maybe it was a good fight to be near. But really, there's just no point to be right here because they can come up through here and kill you. You knew that the Zeus was right here from when he hit you while you were under tower. If you're going to stay in lane and not TP out, or really either way, if you were going to TP out, I would still walk up around here and maybe even hide in the trees, because this is under tower, so no matter which direction they're coming from, any of these ways, they'll have to go under tower, which is dangerous for them at this point. They have no creep wave under tower yet, though they have one on the way, so that they'll have to tank some of the damage. And if you went in the trees, they wouldn't be able to see you without you getting some kind of vision, which Zeus could do when his lightning strikes off cooldown again, but it would have been at the very least harder for them to get the kill, whereas they just easily chased you down in lane here. I'll see if your team gets anything off of it though. Okay, your Invoker came up here too. Looks like they're going to clean both of them up. So your team did get a very good trade off of that, but still I don't think you needed to die for it. And it probably would have been just as good of an outcome either way.
Dire's middle tower is being attacked.
So once again, you were dead, so you had time to look at the shop, you were in base, and you came back to lane with 900 gold. Position 5 has so many things they can buy early on that you should never have very much gold saved up at one time, and you've consistently had like 500 plus gold in your bank. So that's definitely a big area you could improve in.
Bottom tower
this lane is pretty hard for you to do anything to at this point. Okay, I want to talk about that sentry. So let me go back and see if they had vision here when he placed it.
Radiant's bottom tower is being attacked.
Yeah, they definitely did. So they can see this far, and so if they were paying attention, they could see you placing this, so they would know that there's a sentry here. You don't have an obs near it, so they wouldn't really get anything out of dewarding it. But Zeus can use Lightning Bolt to get true sight of an area, so he could have just dewarded this immediately. Definitely should have seen that. And also, I don't really know what the sentry accomplishes for you. I don't think it's very likely that they have an observer ward right here. But even if they did, they've been kind of controlling this bottom section of your jungle here anyway. They would be more likely to have an observer ward around this area so that they could see the rune and also have vision of the hard camp. or they might have something on their side over here. So I would have done one of those for your sentry probably if you're going to spend the sentry up here. But I wouldn't even be too concerned laning against a Zeus because he's going to have pretty good vision control anyway. So I might have just saved your wards. I don't think you really needed more up in the top lane because you already had this observer here that wasn't getting dewarded. Even though you didn't have vision here, you could have had a pretty good idea that they were going to be dominant in this area at this point. You're under their levels. They're pretty strong. Spectre is still not going to be able to help you in fighting. Like, if you look at her items, just saving up for Radiance doesn't have anything yet. She's not going to be able to help win fights. So really, you're just not going to be trying to contest this area. So I don't think that is very good use of wards right now.
Radiant's middle tower is being attacked. Radiant's middle tower is taking damage. Radiant's middle tower has fallen.
I am not quite sure what you pulled that camp out for. I do like that observer ward. I mentioned that spot to you before, but that does get vision of the top power ring. Gets vision of any people rotating top, which makes more space for the Spectre, so that's good. And between the two observer wards you've placed, you have a pretty good line of vision where you'll see anyone coming top. Good ult and good stun to confirm that kill. Oh, I want to say I like your camera movement a whole lot more than most new players I see. You're already pretty good at keeping your character on the outside of the camera and getting vision of like where you should be looking at. Okay, so you went for arcanes instead of tranquils. I'm gonna pause because that's definitely worth talking about. I'm also gonna unpause so that teleport sound goes away. So a lot of people do try to build arcanes on position 5, and on Lina it may even be the correct choice. She may need the mana that badly. But on most position 5s, you're wanting to spend a lot of gold on team support items like wards and regen, and you don't have the disposable income to consistently get arcanes early. Like, you got these at 15 minutes. You could have finished your tranquils by 10. Tranquils are very, very strong on supports. They give you HP regen over time, only when you're out of fights. But the movement speed and regen is very good because they allow you to roam more, and they allow you, if you survive a fight, you're always going to be topped off before the next encounter. And they're very cheap to build compared to arcanes. And you can buy them piecemeal as well. You don't have to buy the big energy booster. But yeah, like if your lane was going badly and you die a couple of times, it becomes especially hard to get arcanes, and you might not get them until like 20 minutes. And that is very bad. Also, like, as good as they are as a support item, like giving mana to your team as well and stuff, Tranquils kind of just balance out. If you buy Tranquils and then buy like a couple of Clarities over the next 5 to 10 minutes, the Clarities should give you enough mana regen to be able to participate in fights until you get a later item that gives you some base mana regen. So yeah, I think Tranquils are just a better boot choice overall for position 5 right now, and most of the time even position 4, to where I would definitely not buy Arcanes on 5. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that. I buy Tranquils on pretty much every 5 right now, and if you play a hero that needs Arcanes to function, I would play them at most as position 4. I wouldn't play them as position 5 if they need that item. So you're rotating over here towards a fight. Queen of Pain is way out of position. I think they probably have this without you, or you're not going to get close enough to make much of a difference here otherwise. So you probably should have had some more words on you by this point. You're once again getting up to pretty high gold, even though you just bought Arcanes, which are a very expensive item for a support at this point. You still have a lot of gold in the bank. So you definitely could have had some wards on you at the very least. And instead of just walking a long way to that fight when you were going to be pretty far away and she was low and your team was already around her, you could have gone and put wards down like around here or here. Those are good points to have vision at this point in the game. Let me see, are wards in stock? No obs, but there are sentries. Team used one of the obs down there, which is kind of questionable, but whatever. But yeah, you still could have been dewarding at that point.
Dire's structures are fortified.
I'm not sure if you were looking at the obs count or not, and that, like, it kind of makes sense when you're a new player. You see, like, oh, there's no obs, I don't need to be going around warding. Okay, so I'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, even if there are no obs, it's still worth buying sentries. It's still worth going and trying to deward, especially around mid if you can take away their vision of the runes so that they don't have that information over your mid laner. But people are kind of roaming at this point, so not necessarily even the mid, just so anyone has info about those. But here, you were just out of position. You were farming a wave 2 pushed up. If you look at where people are, the Queen of Pain has her blink, so she can jump on you even without you knowing she's here. The Sven was definitely going to be like in this area, either like farming here or coming up to farm the wave. The wave was getting pushed in towards their tower, which means it's safe for them to farm, and somebody was going to come get this soon. You do have your Magnus here, but I don't think he could really save you with both of these here, even if he had gone in a bit earlier.
Radiant's bottom tower under fire. Radiant's bottom tower is demolished.
Another thing to note that's especially important at like this mid stage of the game where people are just starting to roam and starting to get items is that while you're dead, you can be doing quite a few things, even though you might think this is kind of wasted time. They're again teleporting to the tier 1, which they did just destroy that tier 2, so I guess that's a good decision here. I'm not sure if it was a misclick or an active decision. Probably, you did have forts, so you could have like forted and teleported to the trees if somebody else would come there with you, but that's just a thing to communicate with your team about. But yeah, while you're dead, if you're not shopping for items, which you should do that, but it won't take up your entire death time usually. Especially right after you die, you can check the inventories of the people who were near you and the people who participated in the kill, and there's a lot of valuable information you can relay to your teammates. Like if people are still fighting there, and you notice that somebody has low mana, that's useful because they won't see the mana naturally unless they're also checking the inventory, which is hard to do during a fight. So that's good. And also you want to be on the lookout for when enemies hit peak item timings because they'll have a power spike around then and they'll be harder to fight against. So if you notice that like one of their cores just got a big item and they're going to be harder to fight against, that's really valuable to tell your team. And I don't know how much you do this or don't do this, but I just saw your camera was still while you were dead, and a lot of people just don't really do anything during that time when you can still have useful impact on the game. So you're pretty split up from your team and kind of out of position right now, and you really don't need to be farming at this point. It's okay for 5s to take farm if they just like happen to be near it, but you don't ever really want to go out of your way to do it. There's almost always better stuff you could be doing. So here you're walking into enemy territory. This is very dangerous. Not sure what you're looking for because you didn't even put the ward. Okay, you're buying a part for Aether Lens. I see. You probably could have tried to put a sentry down there if you were on that side, but you had vision that there was an enemy over here, so it was kind of a dangerous time to go get that. Didn't have teammates super nearby. And also, I want you to know you're not carrying Town Portal Scrolls. You really need to be doing that.
Radiant's top tower is being
This Arcanes into Aetherlands build is the build you want to do if you buy Arcanes. But again, I just don't like that build on position 5s right now at all. There's so much more that position 5s can be spending their build on. That's more of a position 4 build. Put a word up there. That's not a terrible spot, but you did not even walk up the hill to get vision there to see if there was knobs just outside of the natural side of it.
Burn, baby,
It
burn.
did pick off the touch,
has been
so that's pretty good. It is worth using your ult on pretty much anyone you can confirm a kill on right now, so do you think that was worth being there? So a lot of the mid towers are down, or not the mid towers, the tier 1 towers are down at this point in the game. Everything except for your team's offlane tier 1. So both teams are probably a little hesitant to push out right now. This is another point where you should not have taken that wave. Sometimes it's okay for you to take a wave if you're the only one there, but you need to look at your map first and see if anyone else is going to come by, and that Magnus was close enough that he could have taken that wave, and he needs to farm a lot more. I don't know about that charge from him. Luckily you cleaned it up, but he just kind of pushed her outside of your
I
range.
think you're warming up to me.
No odds in stock, still could be carrying some sentries on you. You usually want to carry a lot more sentries than observers as position 5. Like, whenever I send an observer out, unless it's like first 5 minutes of the game and I'm really poor, I'll always get at least one more sentry than obs per trip of the courier. So, you got butt choked. Happens, you're kind of off on your own, and I don't really know what your reason for being there was, because you did not have any wards, you did not have much vision up here, and going for this wave would have been pretty out of position. These camps are much more in their territory than yours because they've taken this tier 1 now. It's very easy for them to be farming this area. That's kind of a natural thing that happens at this point in the game, is the sides will shift a little bit. So the Radiant can farm comfortably in this section of the jungle, and the Dire can farm pretty comfortably over here once the safe lane tier 1 towers are gone. So instead of being the team's territories being like this, it's more like this at this point. So you're just grouping with your team now, looking for a fight. Pretty good place to be in. You usually don't want to be the frontliner like this. Okay. You got hooked again, and that's a pretty hard hook to react to from there. You didn't have a lot of time to see it, but the important thing here is that you were kind of frontlining. You knew that enemies were in this area, and you were out ahead of your Bristle. Normally your offlane will be the frontliner on the team, but especially with Bristle back, like, he's very tanky. You want to be positioning behind your team. You don't really have that many initiation abilities unless you just catch someone really out of position. It's fine for you to come into a fight 2 or 3 seconds later and then get your abilities off, as long as you're not just dying. Because it really does nothing if you tank the damage as a frontliner for your team and just die immediately. another Void Stone. I'm guessing you're going for Yules here. I do like Yules on 5 sometimes. I would normally prefer getting a Glimmer Cape early, especially against a team that has as much magic damage as this. Because you can... I don't know if you know this about Glimmer Cape, but you can apply the Glimmer Cape's active to your teammates as well as yourself, and even if the invisibility is broken, they get the bonus magic resistance from Glimmer for the full duration. And this enemy team you're playing against has a ton of magic damage. Something I want to say about that teleport in. So you teleported back here, and also you just clicked on your map to do it. Sometimes that's okay if you're just going back out to lane quickly and not much is happening, but in a fight like this, when you're teleporting into a fight, you should definitely move your camera to the lane first to look at exactly where people are. And then, secondly, you can position pretty precisely with your teleport around the tower. Okay, I guess it just won't show me tower radius here. But you still had your tier 1. It was not about to die. You would not have just been dead if you were at the tier 1 unless you teleported out in front like this. But if you teleported to the back of the tier 1 instead, or off to the side in these woods, you would have been in a better position to use your abilities at the start of that fight. And you would have just like been in the fight quicker. So it's definitely worth looking at where you're teleporting than before doing it. Let me go back to player perspective. Okay, so this fight's still going on.
More death. An acceptable whole lot of murder going on here. A double slaughter.
Probably would have used your stun a bit earlier, but it worked out pretty well.
A bounty which my matriarch will prize.
Don't know if I love that your team is just backing off here instead of going for an objective.
Bounty.
It's yet another time where you could have been getting wards down or dewarding, especially dewarding like this area of their jungle. Like, let me point out these specific spots actually. So they're all dead. This would have been okay, I don't know why the map did not update with vision for me until just now. It's a pretty weird glitch. I'm gonna change this to dire vision only. Okay. I don't know if I just didn't see that or if it didn't update or it was a bug or something. Don't even know who placed this. Oh well. Anyway, getting a sentry here could be good. Getting a sentry here can be good. Checking like the river area could be good. But you were around here, you could have done something on the way out. This is a point where you're still pretty new to the game, so it's obviously not going to be you making the shot calls most of the time, but you just killed 4 of them. You were pretty close to a tower. I definitely would have tried to push this, because just backing off doesn't really get your team anything at this point. So like, if it's really not dangerous to be there for a while, like their whole team was wiped out except for Queen of Pain, you guys would have been fine pushing there. Not much really going on at this point.
Unstoppable.
Spectre's off solo killing their carry.
Radiant's top tower is under siege.
Is Drow even their carry in this lineup? I don't know. No, Drow is very low in net worth. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Radiant's middle tower is being...
So you did get sentry down there, and that's good. So you had vision of where they're all at. They're pretty spread out. This is the kind of point where it's sort of okay to be doing nothing here. It is better to do nothing than to be called out and die, so if you think it's dangerous to be doing anything at this point, it's kind of fine to just stick around where you can get to a fight quickly. That's the fine thing to do. Don't know if I love taking Philosopher's Stone on Lina. I guess you can swap that out if you're taking towers, but she can do a lot of damage with her right clicks, even as a support, so I don't know if I like taking that. Still just grouped up. I'm skipping ahead, skip back if something happens. Still no fight. Just not really a lot to say about this part of the game. It's a very aggressive ward, but it's good. If you're going to use a sentry somewhere, you should always use the sentry before placing the observer ward, because if they do have a ward there, they're going to see you put down the obs. And if they see you put down the obs, they know that they get gold for dewarding that, and they're going to do it as soon as they can get to that area. Whereas if you put the sentry down first and kill their wards before putting yours down, then they don't know if you put an obs there or not, or if you put your obs somewhere else. So that'll make it much riskier for them to spend the time and money dewarding that spot. Good positioning by you and your team here for the start of this fight. Let me go back. So use your Laguna Blade on the Queen of Pain illusion. It's... Let me see, how did she get that? She probably had illusions bottled, I guess? I don't even know. I'm not sure where she got the illusion from. But anyway, you could still see the second Queen of Pain over here, so even if you thought that was the real one, that's a risky target to use your ult on.
Two down. Radiant's bottom tower is being attacked. Radiant structures are fortified. Dire's middle tower is being attacked. Look at how invulnerable Dire's tower. A quantity of murder, both sick and wicked.
You did get in, but I feel like you could have gone up with your Invoker there, or you could have stayed back. Either way, seems like a bit of poor communication where you guys should have been a bit more tightly grouped for that, because you almost died going for that Zeus. Good job taking the tower. Let me check.
Radiant's bottom tower under fire.
So, whenever you're taking towers like this,
Radiant's bottom tower is being attacked.
you want to get stacks for Fiery Soul when you're taking towers, and you guys took this pretty quickly anyway. But especially earlier in the game, like, you didn't end up pushing any towers early this game, but Lina is very good at that, so it's good to look for opportunities where she can push tier 1s. But even for taking tier 2s, it's still worth with your team here, but it's less important. But if you had like fewer people here, or if you're trying to take a tier 1 earlier in the game, just use both your abilities on the tower. It doesn't matter that you're spending a lot of mana on it. It's worth the attack speed just to do more tower damage.
Radiant's bottom tower has fallen.
I'll take that.
The bounty which I met you at the price.
So I think I might just stop the analysis around here. I feel like I've pointed out most of the stuff that I would want to in the early and mid game, and the rest of this is just like, this is 30 more minutes, and this is just going to be late game fights, and it's just going to be like minor things about positioning during fights and stuff like that. I feel like I've pointed out most of the main things about like itemization, laning, early game. So yeah, probably just some closing thoughts. If you really want me to analyze the later game, I could, but I think I've pointed out most of the useful stuff during this. So itemization is the big thing. This is like a very greedy build for a 5, and you didn't even buy these items as soon as you could have because you've had a lot of liquid gold the whole time. So that could definitely be better. This is like a fine item build as a 4, but and Lina is normally played as a 4 more than a 5, but so it's okay, and it worked out this game. But in a game where you're more behind during the early game, it would be very hard to get these items. Other things, you did stay in your lane for a long time, but that was good this game because Spectre needs some of the most babysitting out of any carries. She really needs her space protected early game to get farm, and it seems like she's doing okay on items, so yeah, you pretty much did your job there. In other situations, like if you had a carry that was more fine on their own, I might have made more early game rotations in like the 5 to 10 minute range. Take a trip down to mid, see if you can get a gank on the mid. If not, put some wards down. Definitely should have just been buying more early game wards in general. Buying more sentries in general. Like, your team has had a surplus of sentries this entire game, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're not able to buy all those sentries. Sometimes your other support is not buying many sentries. Like, it takes both supports to buy a lot of these. But it makes a shocking difference just in the games where you are buying all of the sentries possible. Like, if your sentries are out of stock as much as your observer wards, your team will have amazing vision. You'll be able to take more aggressive vision because you'll be able to tell where they have vision and where they don't. They'll just have less information overall. It makes a big difference in the game. Yeah, I can't see your shop in replays, so I don't know what items you're looking at and stuff. I've said my opinions on what items you should have gone for early. I really like Wand into Tranquils, and then usually a Glimmer Cape, especially if they have a heavy magic damage team like this. And then just kind of like asking your team what utility items they need after that, or if you have an item like Yule's that's not too expensive and is really good for your character, you can go for that at that point after you've gotten your main stuff. But you definitely want to be spending more on vision early game. If they have anyone who might be invis, carry dust, buying some smokes is not a bad idea. Pretty much ever. Smoke is a very good item. Yeah, trying to think. I don't know that I really have anything else to say. I guess if you have any questions, you can just hit me up on Discord after this. Like I said, I don't know that there's going to be too much to point out in the rest of the game, and this has taken a while already. Yeah, geez, this is almost an hour long, so I guess I'll end it here. I wouldn't mind doing more of these sometime if you have other VODs you want me to look at, or if you have any questions after this.